recording this session. So people who join a little bit late will be able to go to the Avanti Women YouTube channel and listen to the entire session. So I want to welcome everyone to Avanti Women's free webinar with Lisa Mitchell. My name is Susie Love, and I'm the person on the other end of info at avantiwomen.com. I have the pleasure of being a resource for all the different learning and networking activities. Just before we get started, as more people are signing on, I want to give you a little bit of background about Avanti Women. It's a volunteer-led organization that is GTA and beyond, and we are dedicated to moving women forward through professional and personal development. Lots of different activities that we do, this webinar series, online learning through Harvard Business Publishing. We have a mentor program that we're relaunching in the next couple of months. And I also want to let you know that we have some terrific networking and learning events coming up in the next half a year. You really have to keep your eyes open for our International Women's Day event, which will be happening March 8th. So with no further ado, I think I'll move to this presentation, Catch Your Breath, Ease into 2018 with Your Priorities Clarified. So Lisa is one of our guest speakers, and she and I have been talking quite a bit about this presentation and the whole content theme about vision and goals. And I've really found that this approach is very refreshing. So it really does give you an opportunity to catch your breath. And if I can get Lisa to move to the next slide. There we go. So this is what Lisa will be talking about. And she'll also give you a little bit of a background about what her background and what her business. But it's interesting, we'll be tuning into what you really want, and to make sure that you give you a process to zero in on your top 3 priorities and powerful ways to keep yourself accountable, and be nice, be kind to yourself at the same time. And I think the next slide will give you some information about Lisa. So this is Lisa and her Green Apple Consulting. She is the principal of Green Apple Consulting, a leadership coach, and navigating life transitions, talent management consultant, facilitator, speaker. And I think I will turn it over to Lisa to give you a little bit more of her background of where she's come from the corporate world, and who else she is outside of being a facilitator and coach. So Lisa, if you can take over for the remainder, and if anybody else, again, if you wanted to chime in with your questions or if you send them into chat, I definitely will help Lisa to be able to respond to those. So Lisa, over to you.
Thank you so much, Susie, and I just want to acknowledge what an incredible support you've been. It's been wonderful working with you, getting ready for today. Welcome, everybody. I'm thrilled and honored that you've chosen to spend part of your Tuesday evening with me, and I do hope and intend to add value for you tonight. So as you can see, I'm interested in all things people, both professionally, in my work life, and on the personal side as well. I spent over 20 years in corporate Canada, and previous to that was a teacher for a short period of time. And I left back in May to launch my own business and take action on my priorities. And it's been quite a journey, and it continues. And I'm hoping to share some of my learning and some of what I'm trying to help people with in my work. My 11-year-old son just came in before we started, actually. I just thought I'd share this with you. And he said, "Mom, you will do great. You have my," I think he said, "love, faith, and hope." So I thought it was pretty sweet. So I've got him backing me on this. So hopefully he's right. Okay. I will do okay for you tonight. So I thought it might be interesting to share with you my vision. So this is something I've been working on for a little while, and because we're talking about priorities and setting goals and making 2018 and beyond great, I thought it would be interesting to open up a little bit and show you something that's taken a while to come to fruition. So I think I finally nailed it. My vision really at this point in my career is to be a catalyst for growth in others as they navigate life transitions. So I speak from personal experience. I've been through lots of important and crazy life changes, as I'm sure everybody on the call has been. So my passion is really to help others figure out when there's that swirl of confused thoughts and anxiety, figure out how to move forward gradually, one step at a time. So it could be helping people dealing with divorce. Some of my clients are dealing with major career shifts. They're either planning for one, or they've experienced downsizing, or they're starting to think about retirement and what life will hold after that. Could be people entering parenthood, becoming a mom, or losing a mom, or taking care of a parent, being part of the sandwich generation. There's all kinds of transitions, and those tend to be the times when we take stock in our lives, and I'm particularly passionate about that area. The other piece that I am really happy about doing as part of my new career as an entrepreneur is partnering with success-minded individuals and companies in the pursuit of personal and professional growth. And that really is working with people and organizations to help develop people strategies. So it's all around talent management and the employee experience. So some of the things that I do is instructional design, leadership development, courses, facilitation, planning for talent strategies, that kind of thing. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. So, you know, I'm working with a professional coach myself right now, and the process has really been a game changer for me and has helped me get clear on what I want to do. Now, I want to be really clear on something. This webinar is not going to sell you on creating big, massive stretch goals and New Year's resolutions that you'll probably give up on by February 1st anyways. My intention for you today is a bit different. I want to create space for you to focus on you, just for a little bit in the midst of the craziness of the week. And I encourage you to give yourself permission to really invest in yourself and allow yourself to catch your breath for a few minutes. I hope this session will give you a fresh start and a new perspective, especially if you have lost momentum on some of your resolutions. So I will guide you through a process tonight to start getting clarity on what is important to you and how you want to approach it. Why is this important? Because you, all of us, have the power to choose who you want to be in this world and to define your own experience. Now, a couple of housekeeping things to mention before we dive in. Susie, who was speaking earlier, sent you a reminder last night, and it included a webinar worksheet. It's completely optional if you wish to use it. It's meant to help facilitate you taking notes. Taking notes really, I hope, even if you're a bit of a cynic around them, they really help you reflect later after the fact, retain information, and it influences you into taking action more so than if you just listen passively. And to help you participate more actively today versus just being passive, we'll be using the chat panel from time to time. And as Susie mentioned, you can also unmute yourself to contribute. I'll be asking for brave souls to speak up at certain points. I'm sure my son has faith in you as well. Okay? All right. So the problem today is that we have an epidemic of hamsters. Too many of us are caught up on this hamster wheel, spinning, out of breath, bragging about how busy we are. We're always busy, too busy to pee, is what my colleague used to say, as if it were a badge of honor and something to be proud of. And I was one of those people saying those things. And it's led to quite a few things happening around us. We have this massive growth of what I think of as the corporate disillusioned. I'm not putting corporate down. I had a great run and I loved it, and it meant the world to me until I was ready for something new. There's a lot of people, though, employees within companies, feeling less valued and therefore less fulfilled. So I'm all about, don't leave corporate if you don't want to. Figure out how you can be happier while you stay. A 2016 study by Conference Board of Canada reports that only 27% of employees in Canada are highly engaged. And that means 73% are only partly or not at all engaged. And partly as a result of this, I would argue that we have now started to experience this massive entrepreneurial wave where millennials and midlife professionals like me are creating their own jobs and ways to make a good living versus relying on a company. The gold watches are a thing of the past. Technology's made it possible to create your own job. Some of you may have heard about something called the gig economy, TaskRabbit, and you can sign up to do odd jobs at people's houses. The share economy, we have Uber, Airbnb, and then there's the ability to create a business as an Amazon seller or as a blogger with affiliate marketing revenue and 1 million Instagram followers. All kinds of ways to monetize technology and social media. Economist Linda Nazareth is a senior fellow at the Macdonald Laurier Institute, and she has a book coming out this year that is titled, "Work is Not a Place, Reimagining Our Lives and Our Organizations in the Post-Jobs Economy." Apparently, if you add up all the contingent workers, freelancers, independent contractors, and consultants, you're talking about 20 to 30% of the Canadian workforce being non-traditional workers already. And that percentage is only getting higher. And then we have all of the statistics from companies that manage employee assistance programs and short and long-term disability programs for corporate Canada. And statistics are showing that the top reason for employee absence is now due to mental health issues. So that's right. Benefits Canada reported last year that mental health and stress are now the prevalent reasons for disability claims. And I personally speak from experience, having been in senior executive corporate roles within HR and seeing reports that demonstrate that stress, chronic fatigue, and a host of other mental health issues have overtaken musculoskeletal issues for causing illness and absence in the workplace. And I'm no stranger to this issue either, because I've worked in senior HR and talent roles for years and have seen firsthand these reports, and I've worked closely with the leaders and the employees experiencing the issues. So we really have a tricky time on our hands with this rise in mental health. I also have a strong personal connection to this issue because, I'm going to step into vulnerability a little bit here, as Brene Brown writes about 2.5 years ago, I began to feel really disillusioned with my work life. After a really long, progressive, and generally, to be honest, happy career, I was exhausted and stressed all the time. And when people asked how I was, I would say, busy, so busy, no time to even breathe. It was my mantra. And I'd been saying it for years because it was true. I was on that wheel. And it was like a badge of honor, something to be proud of, until it wasn't. I slowly started to realize I wasn't happy. And I know now that I was struggling with high stress and anxiety. And it's interesting, though, because it's funny how the toughest times, and I hope some of you will perk up and remember this in yourselves, the toughest times and the hardest experiences wind up serving us in some way. Because eventually I tuned in and I heard this inner voice telling me there was something else out there for me. Something was out of whack. I was out of alignment. So I set out on this long journey, reading, getting help, talking to people, getting clear on my priorities, which are my family, my health, surrounding myself with abundant-minded people that I trust and admire, finding work that challenged my intellect, not my physical stamina, and that would give me energy versus drain it. So I like to think, again, I'm harking back to Brene Brown, that I prioritize courage over comfort. And interestingly, that's part of the reason that I realized that when I became a coach, that my specialty would be helping other people experiencing or anticipating a big life transition like leaving a 20-year career, make it up all by myself. What I know for sure is that being so busy and triple booked in meetings and having no time to pee is not healthy. In fact, it's the opposite. It's insane. So Don Draper, some of you may be fans of Mad Men. I love this quote because I want to change the conversation. I want to change it, and I hope you'll join me, to one that sounds like, I had such a productive day today. I got some exercise in. I slayed the top priorities on my list, And I refueled midday by writing in my journal and chatting with a friend for a few minutes. Because I think that sounds rather calm, reasonable, and sane. All good things to be. So I'd love to connect in and check in with all of you to get a sense of your motivations for joining the call today. And this is where the active participation comes in versus just sitting and listening. You don't have to participate, but it would be great if you choose to. So please use the chat panel on the right side of your screen and type in the letter of the choice on the screen that you relate to most in terms of why you were drawn to this topic today. Maybe Susie can help give me a sense of
who's saying what. We've got a C, a CB.
Okay.
Just people trying to revisit their goals. More on the B's, and well, another B. Couple of C's. Couple of people who are stuck between C and B.
Okay. Any A's in there?
No A's yet. I think you may have gotten through to people. It's interesting. There's another person who's stuck and unfulfilled, but going to school, so trying to make a change. So put that down as a D. It's interesting, though, when you were saying, Lisa, that I think it must feel like if you're in school and all the cool kids are saying this, that it does take a lot of courage to say, wow, I don't think it's cool to say that anymore, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, switch the cool kids over. And it's just finding the courage within yourself to say that.
Yeah, will I be kicked out of the clique? It is a little bit like that, because it was very much part of the culture that I came from for years. To a degree, every company had some of that. So very much an expectation that you're breathless. So let's talk about each option just really briefly. So if you picked A, or even if it was your runner-up, so this is the breathless, stressed piece, a question for you to ponder. What if you could move from breathless to balanced? Think about what that would look like for you. What does that mean? Now, if you chose B, you're feeling motivated, you signed up right after New Year's, you're thinking, oh yeah, this is exactly what I need. What if you could 10x your results, which is increase them tenfold? What tools and habits could you develop to reach for those stars? Now, if you picked C, stuck or unfulfilled, what if you could get a bit of clarity on what's most important to you? What if you followed a couple of threads and figured out a couple of actionable ways to start exploring without having to make a commitment just yet? And some people said others, some people said, I want to, get going. I'm going to school. I'm trying to figure things out. A tool that I use in my coaching practice, and you can Google it or reach out to me and I'll share it with you, is called the Wheel of Life. And I love it because it's simple and it helps people figure out what the different spokes are in their wheel or in the areas of their life that are important to them. And then they assess how they're doing in each area. And that helps them focus, figure out where to start. So one area might be work or career, another might be relationship with partner, and another might be money. Now, I had a really interesting scenario with a client a couple of weeks ago, and he shared, where we landed ultimately. He was very focused on his task list and time management. Where we ultimately got to was he wants to just work on having more fun, enjoying his leisure time versus feeling guilty about it. He's always feeling guilty about not doing and getting stuff done. And I truly relate to that. So he wants to revel a bit in simply being. So consider a little bit, what does your wheel of life look like? You're in the right place. That's the good news. This time is for you, an investment in you to help you clarify your priorities so that you can move forward. So let's talk about our first objective, which is tuning in to what you really want. Something I'd like to put out there. It's critical to tune into not just what your head is telling you, also what your heart and your gut are telling you. And a great way to start that is by determining your values and your strengths. So let's get you working a little bit here. Make it count. You've already logged on. Might as well see it through. So grab a pen and a paper if you don't already have these out. So even if you don't finish it, just give it a shot. Just get started. So what do you always have time for? When my coach asked me this, I thought, oh, that is so interesting. You know what? I don't think there's a day goes by that I don't read something. It's core to who I am and what I love. I'm either reading a bit of the paper, a bit of a fiction book, business book, school books, whatever it is. Reading is really key for me. It sort of helps to ground me. So I always have time for reading. Another great question is, what do you always find money for? So I'm not talking about groceries and gas for the car and so on, but maybe you guard that annual vacation with your life, okay? It happens. You will scrimp and save and wear, really old yoga pants so that you can go on your vacation. But what do you always find money for? And think about what clues that gives you around what's important to you values-wise. This next one is pretty cool too. Let's say you're having a party at your house and it's full of really neat people, whatever that means to you. They could be in costume or not. And you get to determine the topics of conversation. Which topics would you choose to explore with these really interesting people? Okay. Now, we're not going to go through all of these, but I would love to know what you folks like to spend your time on. So if you are open to it, please go to the chat panel quickly and type in, what do you always have time for? And Susie will tell me a few of the inputs.
I'm going to say my girls.
Your girls, okay, I love that.
They're not my babies. Oh, someone's saying crochet and family. Being outside's another one. That's a great one. Mm-hmm. Family. So we have a little bit of a theme here.
Yeah, we do. Fantastic. Okay.
Someone else says, I always have time for working out and counseling others on relationships, which is great.
Oh, yes. You know what? I really admire that because I'm still working on the goal of working out every day. I'm getting the walks in, getting the steps, but bravo to that person. It's awesome. So, the beauty of getting clear on your values is that they will guide you in your choices and help you say no to things that aren't core priorities. And something that I just thought of this moment is I'm a real fan of Tim Ferriss, who has a podcast and has written many books, and his latest book is out called Tribe of Mentors, and he interviews amazingly accomplished people from all walks of life. And one of the things he's been asking people for this last book is, how do you say no? What do you say no to? So something interesting if you have trouble with that and you want to explore it a little bit more. So let's dig into, we've just touched on values. What about strengths? What am I talking about there? So when I'm talking about strengths related to your priorities for tonight's purposes, I'm talking about your character strengths, who you are deep down. These are different from other skills like your talents, resources that you bring to the table. Over on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see kind of a word cloud, and it's courtesy of viacharacter.org. And I use their strengths survey in my coaching practice, as do a lot of coaches. And I love it because it helps people really gain a little bit of insight into, that they probably value all of these things and want to be strong in all of these things, but where do they really lead from? So I'd like you to jot down on your own 2 or 3 of what you feel are your character strengths. That you don't have to use these words. If they don't resonate with you, you can use your own words. Okay. So why do we want to think about strengths? Because there's a lot about strengths out there in the ether. You hear all sorts of stuff about it on LinkedIn and all of the business channels and so on. And the thing is that when we have awareness of strengths, it helps us, it propels us, right? Because it makes things easier. If we're using them sort of like tools and we can pull them out where it makes sense, it leads to higher performance, better performance. We get more done, we do it better, and we learn more and more. And the interesting thing is that when we feel better about how we're performing and learning, that leads as well, it's like a domino effect, to higher levels of enjoyment and fulfillment, potentially. Some of us don't think about fulfillment. But in the end, that's kind of what matters. It's about finding your purpose in life and feeling in flow, really, if fulfillment isn't a word that sits well with you. So now I invite you to jot down what comes easy and naturally to you. What do you consistently end up doing no matter what the context? And I'll tell you what mine is. So back here, when I looked at this strengths word cloud, for me, love of learning is one of my top 5 strengths. And that translates into my love of helping people learn. So when I was in high school, parents didn't tell me to do this, but I started tutoring. And then I went to teacher's college and I became a teacher. And then I went to get my adult education diploma, and I've been teaching adults and leading teams and working with those teams to help them learn, and now coaching. So that has been a really common theme. What is it for you? And feel free to type it in the chat panel. Susie, let me know if anything shows up there.
I said that I was good at organizing. We've got some responses that were this, and I'm not sure if I just missed them in the strengths. Yeah, I think I must have missed those ones. There was family and friends and social media. Someone else is creative and resourceful. Creative, we got another creative person. Someone else who's empathetic, which is amazing. Listening without judgment.
Yes, it is one of the hardest skills. That's wonderful. Excellent. Well, keep those top of mind. Jot them down in your journal. Put them on a Post-it. Keep them close to you so that you can keep remembering, oh yeah, I can draw on this. I know that this is an area of strength. One of the main reasons I love working with my coach is that he helps me remember to leverage my strengths and keep aligned with my values. It's really interesting. I won't even realize sometimes that I've sort of gotten off track, and he'll bring me back to earth and sort of remind me, well, isn't that, couldn't you pull on this strength over here? What would that look like? So my inner critic, like a lot of yours probably, is super loud. So my inner critic likes to creep in and make me doubt myself and what I'm doing. And when I focus what I'm doing and who I'm being on coming from my strengths and lining up with my values, then I find my inner critic loses power. That lets me in turn get clear on my priorities and get traction with them. So by the way, I should mention that I have a free priority resources guide that I'll be letting you know how to access at the end of the session. And it includes a link to the Via Strengths survey so that you can actually do a bit of a quick online survey to get your list of strengths in sequence. So I really encourage you to do that.
Sorry, just before we leave, there was another one whose strength was respecting others, which I think is a really critical. It's so nice to have that respect brought to the foreground. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Thank you. I love that. I want to acknowledge that resonated with you as well. That's interesting. Speaks to who you are. So thank you for whoever shared that, and Susie for bringing that into play. Okay. So let's move into a simple process to zero in on your top 3 priorities. So thinking through a little bit of context. So I don't necessarily expect you're going to nail down exactly what you want right now in this webinar, although it's great if you do, overachiever. I do want to offer you some questions to think about. And something to flag is that all of these questions are helpful in exploring what really matters to you. They don't operate alone, okay? Because you can ask yourself questions about, well, what is my vision? What do I really want? And get clear on that, and then get completely sidetracked by distractions or frozen by fear and worry about what if it all goes to hell in a handbasket and I fail. So looking at what you want from different angles is important. So a really amazing and powerful, simple question that worked well for me was closing my eyes and thinking about, all right, so a year from today, what do I want to be able to celebrate? What do I want to achieve, be, feel? Okay, what do I want to celebrate? It could be anything. It's up to you. Okay. Think about what strengths do you want to leverage? So you have a whole host of them, but which ones in particular do you feel can help you really achieve your vision? Okay. Then think about what scares you. And this is the part that people kind of tend to avoid. Okay. What freaks you out a little bit? And a companion question to that is thinking about, it's not that scary. When you've weathered major change and drama before and come out stronger, what did you learn? So, I'll share an example. Over 20 years ago, I was a middle school French teacher. And I was deeply unhappy, stressed, working a lot of hours, not feeling supported. And I really wanted to resign. And before I made the decision to leave, I remember lying in bed and trying to figure out, okay, which option makes me feel less likely to throw up? It really came down to that, people, okay? Was it the thought of getting back in the classroom in September, or the thought of being without a job and not knowing what the future held? So neither option was appealing. It really came down to choosing the least terrible path. And yet, when I think about the fact that I had the courage to step into the unknown because I didn't know what was going to happen, it paid off. I grew, I learned, I found a new career that suited me really well. I learned what I didn't like or want, what I couldn't tolerate, and what I could. We've got somebody answering a phone. Please go on mute if you don't mind. Thank you. Another key consideration is to figure out what's the story you're telling yourself. Okay? It's critical to think about what you want as though there were no limitations, no fears, no. Oh, what happened there? We're good. So consider, what if everything worked out? We all tend to look at it from, what if I fail? What if everybody hates me? What if I don't get support? What if I can't find another job? That kind of thing. Flip it. What if everything did work out? If yes, I may have fears, but they're overcomable. All right. And what if your inner critic would just be quiet? I mentioned him earlier. Mine's a him. Okay. We'll never tame him or her completely because they're noisy, intrusive, really nasty. So I've been learning, it's possible, how to notice mine earlier when he's sitting on my shoulder. So I notice him and then I dismiss him. So mine looks like a Dementor from Harry Potter. And he says stuff like, you should do this. You should have thought of this. You can't do that. You'll fail. I really don't like him. He sucks away my energy. And so I'm choosing to give him less airtime in my head. So imagine what's possible if you can train yourself and learn bit by bit to kind of quiet that inner voice, that negative inner critic or saboteur. Okay. Any questions coming up for people? You can either chat or unmute.
I think it's interesting to see what scares you, because that holds a lot of power. And instead of ignoring it, you want to understand it. You know what? By facing it, it might bring something out into the open that is important. But just from a different perspective, I've never thought about that. But I think it's a good demon to tackle.
Yeah,
I've read that thing a couple of times.
Was that somebody saying you've read that idea? Oh, I'm not sure if they were on another call or if they were speaking up for us. Okay, so let's move into the zeroing in process, the SFD, okay? I'm not sure if some of you know what an SFD is, but we're actually going to do a bit of work here. We're not looking for perfection. Consider your SFD, which is your shitty first draft, as Brene likes to say, okay? It's not about having perfect grammar, spelling. It's just getting it out, putting it out in the open, getting started, and then you have something that you can work from and refine until it's right. So, pen and paper poised. The first step is to think about, now that you've reflected a little bit on your values and your strengths, list 3 priorities you have for yourself that align with those. So for instance, one of mine is family, another is health. What are they for you? Secondly, choose one of those 3 priorities from step number 1 and list one outcome related to this priority that you would like to make happen this year. Just one. Don't get fancy. Don't create overwhelm for yourself. And 3, based on that one outcome you listed in step 2, list 3 actions. Keep them small, baby steps. 3 actions you can take to get started on this priority. And remember, you can refine later and as you go along. It's just a place to start so that you step into where you want to go, who you want to be. Okay. Now, another thing to mention is after this webinar, a key step is to go back and repeat this for your other priorities and refine it along the way. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask if there's any volunteer that is brave enough to unmute and share a little feedback. I've got a couple of questions related to this process, but I'm not looking for you to share what you wrote. That's for you. Anybody willing?
I'll take one for the team. If no one steps up, it's Susie.
Okay. All right. So, Susie, how easy or hard was it for you to come up with 3 actions? I know we don't have a lot of time, but high level.
I mean the last one. Actually, not too tough.
Okay.
Because I think I've been swimming around it for a while. And it's put it in a different perspective that it didn't need to be perfect. It didn't need to, it didn't need to be in full depth. So I just wrote something down, something that I could do tomorrow.
Okay. And how realistic are they?
Realistic. So part of it is, we still got someone who's on another call. We can hear their, are we got there? Part of mine is to really take my fitness and health to another level. Long story. And if you go into any kind of, you can look at Whole30 diets and all kinds of things, and it starts to become really complicated. And then you're like, oh, forget it. I'm just going to go to McDonald's for lunch. So if you go if you want to, become a PhD nutritionist, it's complicated. But for me, it was, simple. I know what I need to do. I just need to not eat those processed foods.
Absolutely. So it's interesting because I've got a quote coming up for you that I think will really resonate. So thanks for the segue, actually. That was actually really great because we're going to talk a bit about ways that you can help yourself stay accountable to your priorities. So I love this quote. Commitment means staying loyal to what you said you were going to do long after the mood you set it in has left you. Okay? So typically we all know what we need to do, especially when it comes to fitness or losing weight. It's just following through on what we know. And it's easy coming into January 1st or the beginning of the school year to feel really motivated and say, oh, I'm going to get this done finally. And then life happens and you get pulled in different directions and have not created systems or methods that help you be on track. So I actually saw there was a Toronto Star article, some of you may have seen it, was a couple of weeks ago, and it was talking about a book called The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing by Daniel Pink. It outlines research that shows how people's motivation to start fresh tends to increase on the first of the year, the first day of the week, the first day of the month, first day of a season. So there's this natural human tendency that we all share to see time or temporal markers on the calendar as moments to start again or start over. So I invite you to think about how can you use this natural human tendency to your advantage in terms of keeping accountable to your priorities and outcomes. As an example, for me, I decided to diarize the first day of each quarter, so 3-month increments, to check in on my planned outcomes and take a moment to recalibrate. just to see, have I gotten off track? What do I need to get back on? Or have I determined, because I know something new now, that I need to alter my course going forward? So I reset, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just making sure you take the time to check in on where you're at. So in the chat panel, type in your ideas or things you already do or things you're thinking about using to keep yourself accountable to your priorities. Susie, if you can tell me a couple of things showing up, that would be great.
People are still thinking.
That's okay, they're allowed. They're catching their breath. So one method that I have.
Oh, someone said goal pages in the planner. That's a great idea. Track them in the calendar. That's another great idea.
Okay.
I think I did discuss with your friends, talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
A bullet journal helped me figure out what's important for the coming week and helps keep me accountable.
Oh, yes, my husband is using one of those. He loves it. Bullet journal. It's creating your own effectively.
Yeah, and someone else is talking about the long-term goal is too far away, so I focus on the next logical step each week for each goal so they don't get overwhelmed.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Good advice for all of us. Okay.
Someone else likes Post-it notes.
Excellent.
Someone else is littering their wall with Post-it notes.
Well, it certainly keeps them visible, right? If it keeps it top of mind, that's part of the battle, right? Because the thing is that life happens and we get pulled in and we forget about these check-ins that we want to make. Here's some other ideas. Some of them are overlap with what the listeners have shared. So making a vision board. I was cynical about this. I don't know why. I was a resistor for years. And I recently made one. I actually invite you to check out my blog at greenappleconsulting.ca if you like. My 11-year-old inspired me to write it because he had seen mine and he thought it was kind of interesting, asked me a couple questions about why I did it. Mine's really simple. It's very, very basic. And he made his own. And I mean, he's 11, so he hasn't completely knocked them all out of the park yet, but it has increased his, I'd say, motivation on at least a couple of them where he's made some steady progress. Morning routines are much easier in my house, I will tell you, partly because of his vision board. So it does and can work. Trying to diarize in your calendar. Could be every week. I put weekly. It could be, at the end of every day. It could be once a month. But celebrate wins. That's something that I think we all forget. And it's a shame because when we forget to celebrate what we are doing well, those can fall off as well. Okay? Acknowledge yourself. What do you want to acknowledge yourself for? Journaling regularly is powerful. And not just for me. I'm a writer. I love to write. It's proven that using a journal and taking time, every couple of days, just sort of, what did I write before? Reread some past entries. You're going to see, look at the intentions, the plans, the amazing ideas I had, right? I forget sometimes. I think, oh my God, I came up with that. That's actually pretty good. That's a good point. And it's helping me overall with awareness and staying on track of my goals. Now, another tip or idea for you to consider is a lot of you may have maybe working in the corporate world where you're doing annual plans, okay? You've got annual goals for a whole year, or maybe you're in a leadership role, you're planning 3 to 5 years out. I mean, that was my world. And now, partly because I'm an entrepreneur now, I'm finding that's very overwhelming. I don't know what I don't know. And so a really wonderful business coach said to me, plan 1 quarter at a time. You can get your head around, any of us can get our heads around 3 months. And say, I want to just get these things that fit into my overall vision and goals. And it's really making a difference for me. Another thing to consider is figuring out, okay, saying no to things that don't map to your priorities. So it's not just about things that you want to do to stay on track, but what things do you want to say no to that take you off track? Because if they don't line up with your priorities and outcomes that you've decided on, then you're falling out of alignment with your values and strengths, because ideally you've built those priorities based on those. Okay. Plan check-ins with yourself to reflect and assess progress. How are you doing? Hold yourself to it. And sometimes it's helpful to find an accountability partner. So that could be a trusted friend, your spouse, a coach, or a mentor. Okay, you've got a whole bunch of options. All right. So let's review what we've covered so far. So simple process, and for some of you this may be more of a refresher. If you just come away with one nugget or feeling a little bit motivated to put some of this into action, I'm really happy about that. Tune in to what you really want, which means tapping into your value system and your strengths. Then zeroing in on your top priorities and designing outcomes and actions that support those priorities. And then, words are meaningless if there's no follow through, keeping yourself accountable to your own priorities, right? I'm a leadership coach, which is helping people be leaders in their life. So part of that is saying, okay, I'm going to do what I set out to do, and keep them realistic. That way you'll stay on track. So what's in it for you? What's possible when you implement all of this, or some of this, whatever resonated with you? In my experience, for myself personally, and with clients that I've worked with and teams that I've worked with over the years, increased awareness of what you want and need, which leads to better choices and decisions, so less stress, okay? Personal growth continues to just propel you forward. It allows you to get stuff done, all right? So that you're not feeling like, oh, I'm stuck, I'm not making any progress. And that in turn is that domino effect, gives you a real sense of accomplishment and perhaps even fulfillment or satisfaction. The last one's interesting because I think that when you do really focus in and live in alignment with your priorities, new opportunities come your way that you never saw coming. I remember back in the summer, it was early on in my new role, my new journey, and a person I had met for a networking coffee said to me, she goes, now that you've opened the door to possibilities and ideas and new ways of doing and being, it's like the universe is going to deliver. You're going to have new people, ideas showing up on your doorstep. And it's true. My world has just exploded in terms of the community and ideas and richness. So I know it sounds pretty crazy, but it's very, very true. Okay. So, I sincerely hope that you're taking away some nuggets of truth for you that will contribute to your growth. So as a tangible thank you gift for attending tonight and being part of this, I've created a free priorities resource guide. So it's got a list of some books. It's not exhaustive because I love my books, but some really good books related to this topic. Blogs you might want to check out, some habits and some tips related to our topic today. I've also got that Via Strengths link in there. So I'm happy to share it with you. Simply reach out to me through one of the 3 means listed at the bottom of the screen, and I will send it your way. I'd also like to extend an invitation to all of you. If you liked what you heard and experienced today, would like to continue the conversation and further cement some of today's learning, I'm offering a free 30-minute implementation catalyst call with me. And in this call, it's all about you. I will help you shine a light on the priorities you identified today and guide you in figuring out what you need to do next. So it's a $99 value, current value. I have space on my calendar for 10 people only. So I do encourage you to act quickly. Please make your appointment before February 9th. The meeting can actually take place after that date, but I'm booking up until then, okay? So before closing, I'd like to share a quick anecdote with you, a little personal story as well. So a month after leaving my job and wading into working for myself, my dad, he's 80 years old and he lives with me. He got very, very sick and ended up being hospitalized and having pretty major surgery, life-changing surgery. And he's still in a convalescent home now. So it's been almost 5 months he's been away in hospitals and long-term care homes. So it's interesting. What I wanted to share, though, is that even though it's really been a part-time job because I visit him almost every day, and with all the advocating within the healthcare system for him. The universe has somehow made this happen at a time when I have flexibility in my schedule to manage it. And that's flexibility I didn't have before. It's allowing me to be true to my priority of family and to be able to still breathe. And in spite of it, I've still been able to earn consulting contracts and coaching clients. So clearly something's working, even though I had way less time to work on my business than I anticipated. So I didn't have time to kill myself, is what I'm saying, with work, and things are still moving. So I would suggest to you, be kind to yourself, because getting things done slowly is better than getting nothing done. And change takes time.
Absolutely. It seems like the universe can be with you as well. That last example really seems like the universe was with you.
Absolutely.
Good karma. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had a couple people that are saying saying they want the priority resource guide. I will send an email out to the folks that attended and give you a chance to just a reminder. Is there anybody else that wants to chat so I can take their name down about the resource guide or the about the implementation catalyst call?
Yeah, I just put up my email and site again, or you can send a message in the chat panel with your email address, and then I can send it to you promptly.
Okay, great. So I've got a couple of people, and again, I'm going to have to make sure I get back to the registration and get their email. So I will follow up by email if I see you're in the chat that you wanted this information, and then forward that information over to Lisa. But I can tell you that the feedback's very positive, very motivational, but inspirational, but also calming talk.
Good. Wow.
Which was really nice.
So I'm glad. Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. Are there any questions from the listeners before we conclude, or comments?
I'm just writing down all the people who are talking to me or who are saying the guide.
Okay. Sounds good. Please reach out. I'm happy to share it, and I do hope it adds some value. And I really once again appreciate everybody taking the time tonight.
Right. And also a reminder, guys, that there will be, I will be posting a recording of this. So if you wanted to go back and listen to some of the information, because I did find it quite powerful how you articulated it, Lisa, and I'm sure the rest of the folks did. It'd be nice for them to go back and listen to this. But a reminder that these catalyst calls are only available before the booking before the 9th. Right. So if there's no other questions, if I can, I'm going to sign off, stop the recording and sign off. Anybody? Just any last minute thoughts or questions? A lot of thank yous.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Thanks, everybody. And don't forget to keep an eye on Avanti Women's site for our wonderful International Women's Day event coming up March 8th. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.